in the evening.
Oh, that's cold. That's cold.
That's cold.
But the previous year must have been 15, 16.
Yeah, and daytime, of course, it is going a little more. Anyway, so therefore I made coffee.
Over to you to start.
Yeah, ma'am, you can start.
It's 19 hours.
It's 7 o'clock.
So good evening, everyone. Today, all of us have gathered today to engage in a meaningful and informative learning session with esteemed human resources leaders present with us. We would like to welcome Mr. Chandrasekhar Shripada, Mr. Akhil Busrai for today's panel. This interaction will be coordinated by one-year PGPM Human Resources Leadership students of SOIL, who are Rakesh Kumar, Sagar Ghorpade, and Shubhangi, and myself, Shubhangi Sharma. We also have our alumni, who is Vaishnavi Shankar, present with us. We would also like to welcome our director, Dr. T.J. Vijaya, our program chair, Arja Chakravarti, and students of SOIL who have joined us today for the session. I would now like to welcome Arja ma'am for the opening note.
Okay. Welcome to this time and space. Thank you so much, Dr. Akhil, Dr. Shripada, for joining us. I want to tell our audience that this book, Leaders in the Making, which has inspired us to have sessions like these. And this book has actually captured the story of 30 leaders who have, in some way or the other, given a lot of contribution to HR. We who are in the classrooms today and who are learning HR have a lot to learn from these stories. And this book has been written by Arvind Agarwal and T.V. Rao, and I really like the model which they are bringing up, which is the baking of HR leaders framework, and how the first level of baking is before you enter your corporate world or your work or your entrepreneurship, and the second level is actually at the work. And Dave Eric, who has given the foreword to this book, has commended the work of the authors for the deep dive into the stories of these leaders. And I personally am very fond of reading biographies, and I read word by word of Dr. Akhil Busrai, and I was fascinated by the story in Calcutta and what you did. I could relate to it because I also started my career in '93 with Hindustan Motors and then Dunlop. So I could very well relate to it. And Dr. Shripada, your story will inspire us, and we will see our students asking you the questions. That is because when it comes to HR, there's a lot of understanding that we bring ourselves to this role and responsibility. So I, without much explanation into what has actually happened in the book, which is very interesting, we would straight away dive into the questions that we have. I would also like to welcome the audience, our students in the Human Resources Leadership Program, and the other students from our campus in Manesar, SOBD, all the visiting faculty, and all the friends of SOIL, as we call them, who have joined us. Sagar?
Thank you, Aja ma'am. Hello, this is Sagar Ghorpade. I am student of one-year PGPM Human Resource Leadership Program at SOIL. And I would like to address my first question to both of the guest speakers. Can you share with us any observations you have made regarding evolution of human resources in today's business landscape? Are the practices which you have implemented in your career still relevant today? Additionally, what valuable insight or life lesson you would like to impart to us? We would like to hear from both of you in 15 minutes. Thank you.
You want me to go first? You want to go first, Akhil?
No, please go ahead, Chandra.
So, no, that's a very interesting question. Your interest in today's landscape is very important. And obviously, both Akhil and I have the advantage of having literally shaping our lives with the evolution of the HR function. As the HR function evolved, we evolved. So it didn't evolve because of us, but we evolved because of that. Okay. But you know the phases through which it has passed. Partly it looks like a change in nomenclature, but each of those change in nomenclature wanted to have a certain emphasis on the focus and function of the HR function. So it started with labor welfare. In 1940s, if anybody called himself HR, nobody would have understood. The function started as a labor welfare function. Why? Because factory conditions, which is where labor were very, very bad, and employers were not treating them well, and government wanted an authorized officer who would at least ensure that wages are paid and people are looked after. The labor welfare evolved into something called personnel. Personnel was slightly more systematic. It tried to bring in some kind of a rule and process across the company. That was the second phase of development. It was, however, every phase has seen a peak and a downturn because it got abused. Labor welfare got abused. So personnel got abused and reduced itself to bureaucracy. And it kind of increased, it put more emphasis on the handbook or the manual than on the people. So that reached a point. Then came Professor T.V. Rao is a big contribution, an interesting intervention called HRD. These days, we don't hear the word D, we only hear HR. But in 1980s, HRD was a very important thing. It tried to bring, it continued the systems and process view of HR, which was personnel, but it overlaid a behavioral science kind of overlay on it and said that personal relationships, individual personality, organization, what we call OD kind of interventions, team interventions are important. And then it came to that. So that led to a certain degree of infusion of behavioral science insights into the so-called HR function. Then came 1990s. The American business model continues to influence us the most. We don't have our own business model. Actually, we are a copy of the American corporate model. There is nothing called Indian corporate world. So the American world started looking at people as resources. Therefore, why they looked at it? Because there was labor cost in that country was going up. And the only way they could actually manage their companies is to reduce the labor cost. So HR became a function which unfortunately was more about a resource view of people and therefore more about how to manage the costs of labor. So it started acquiring a rather difficult reputation. Instead of being the advocate of the employee, it became the advocate of the employer, but in more sophisticated ways, not in the way the labor welfare officer was. And a lot of tools and techniques were bought. HR became close to business. We spent between 90s, 2000s until 2010, a lot of time in trying to make HR should get a seat on the table. And HR functions suffered from a huge existential challenge. They were feeling they were not equal to the business. And the only way they could become equal to the business is they were always exhorted to understand business and become business partners. Now this, in the 2010 to 2020 period, reached its abuse, in my opinion. The abuse is, instead of being the employee advocate, instead of representing the human element in the organizations, HR people, in order to get a seat on the table, became business partners and started talking the language of business instead of the language of people. 2020s is seeing another transformation. In this transformation, the word talent is used very often. And HR is being substituted by the word talent. It will come with its own challenges, but for now, a lot of people are calling themselves talent heads. And it is a very differentiated approach. Talent means only some people are talented. And so it's a different thing. So I'm partly talking like an academic, partly talking, I almost gave you a lecture on the evolution of HR. What am I seeing now? I'm seeing the continuous engagement of business, which is good and bad. So HR people have evolved. Their understanding of business has grown a lot, which is a very good thing to do. And we should continue that. You as students should not consider yourself. I always say I'm a business leader with HR expertise. A business leader with HR expertise. So you should continue that. But you should be the advocate of the employee. You should develop the human element in the organization. We should not go the Western model of believing that labor is cost and you people are dispensable resources. We should certainly build, this country needs more employment, more sustainability of jobs and wages and lives. So we should develop an India view of what HR should be. And it is about combining the modernity, automation, technology with the value of the human being. And it is in the balance that we will succeed independently. That is a trend we are seeing here and there, but yet to pick up. So those are my views. I took a little longer time, but I just wanted you to get a feel. Gil, it's your turn.
Okay, shall I address the same question?
Yes, sir.
Chandra, you painted the nice picture of the evolution. So it might be a bit of a repeat because history was written like that. It occurred like that. So it is not repetition. But I'll take my interpretation of what Chandra very eloquently presented. We are the only function which goes through a nomenclature change every decade and a half or decade every year. So the 60s went, like Chandra very rightly said, to the welfare. All you did was compliance, whether the water container, the drinking water was kept 15 feet away from the washroom door. And those of us who have suffered that, thank God our generation didn't suffer, and Vaishnavi, your generation will never know about that. But then came the whole idea that from compliance, 70s was the most significant for HR function, in my opinion. Well, that is the time when industrial relation came to be the forefront. And whether it was Jyoti Basu in Bengal, or whether it was Datta Samant in West, and whether it is Ramachandran in the South, the entire country was a pot boiler of industrial relation, disruption of work, confrontation, basically confrontation, legal approaches, the court and going to the labor commissioner, drop of a hat. And Professor Chakravarti, like you mentioned about Calcutta, I was 23 and a half when I had my first gherao. Now, it'd be a nice question to ask Vaishnavi and a generation, what is gherao? They will not even know what it is. Right, Chandra?
Yes. I had a 48 hours gherao.
48. You are lucky
I was
because
put,
the
so that you
Dalda
know,
factory.
Vaishnavi, the officers of the company are put in a room and locked from outside, and we are not given food.
Okay.
We have to live there. That's it. That bad was
So that was the pressure technique they used. But the upside of that industrialization was that most of us learned our basic human resources during that phase. So if you go to the book, Professor, and my fellow professional on the call, the authors have very pointedly made a reference that 28 out of 30 people had industrial relation experience. Now, industrial relation is an obsolete word. Younger generation of HR professional laugh at it. So that was Jurassic Park stuff. It was Jurassic Park. But remember one thing, that the basic foundation of OD and all these things that we learn in the classroom didn't happen through books alone. It happened in dealing with people. And let me reiterate that the H in HR really came to forefront when dealing with confrontational type of situation, when you could put your best foot forward and still come out as a winner. So the industrialization phase, I think, was the most significant evolution for HR community to learn from. Then came, slowly started fading. The unions had a sundown. Then came one phase which was actually quizzical to me. It was called change agent. Now, none of us understood what change it was, but we were all running like headless chicken, changing something. And that was the down part of the HR, when HR did not have direction of its own. And Professor, I'm mixing up the good and the bad and the ugly together because we lived through that. I don't think we should hide away from where we failed. So none of us knew at that time what change to bring about. But the label was the change agent. Fortunately, it didn't last very long. And then came this famous business partner. It was a good move in the right direction. To understand business is something that many of us in HR have failed. We never understood business. We got cloistered in our domain. We understood all the figures of PAT, PBT, CAGR. But what is it that the business people are losing sleep over? Missed us. And as a result of that, there was this hankering, and Chandra, you rightly pointed out to the word seat on the table. HR people started actually demanding or expecting that why should I not have a seat on the table? It was a sad thing to expect. You must earn a seat on the table, not get it there because you are HR. The organization box called HR should not entitle you to a seat on the table unless you add value. And I'm not giving some gyan or motherhood statement here. We fail to understand that we could actually play the role because our vision in many, and I'm not saying all, there are many enlightened HR leaders and the HR youngsters who did phenomenal work on partnership, phenomenal work. But some of us who did not got confused, who's the customer? So you ask an ordinary HR person, who's your customer? The answer was my line manager. They forgot that the person who buys your product or service is actually the customer. And if you focus on line manager only serving one segment, if you focus on the end result, then you help the business do better. So the phase now that we are in, and one good thing that happened during COVID, HR got its credibility back. Line managers accepted the fact that the HR was leading. And HR stood up and uniformly across all industries, across all types of organizations, including MSMEs, SMEs, large corporate, PSUs. They did amazing work. They led from the front and people followed. Now, having tasted that leadership position, it would be a complete waste of that credibility if we go back to say good old days. Good old days are dead. Anybody who lives in the past and say we'll go back to the old time is living in denial. And denial is never a good strategy. This is the opportunity to look forward, that instead of just helping business, partnering with the business, can we shape the business? Or it may sound cheeky, so be it. We can shape the business. There are times and opportunities that will come sometime by serendipity. What is the word? Serendipity? Is the right word?
Serendipity, yes. Serendipity.
It's a tongue twister. Either by that or by design, we can grab opportunity to shape the business. And the moment we do that, we will be again adding value. And nothing could be better at this juncture with technology coming in a big way. All of us are at the same playing level, like line managers. How many of them know blockchain? Very few. How many of us know blockchain? Very few. Very few equal to very few. We can upgrade ourselves and make sure that we connect technology changes with our organization, our need, rather than blindly follow because my neighbor is doing that. Oh, they have a chatbot, we must also have a chatbot. Using technology, using new methods, and most important, last point, Professor, is to understand the feel of the pulse of the market. Where is the market moving? Where is the competition? What are they doing? What technology is wiping out some of the organization's credibility? And can it happen to us? We've got to wake up and ask awkward questions that are we on the right track, or are we just flowing with the tide to say, thinking everything is going very well? I think that questioning ability of the HR will make this evolution of HR into a much better trajectory from now on. So I feel there's, while the past has been what it has been, like Chandra and I mentioned, that this is how we lived. but there's been a lot of learning from there. And those learning can be applied now to make our function more effective. So over to you, Sagar.
Thank you, Dr. Akil sir and Dr. Shripad sir. Your insights has given us excellent idea of HR, its birth, and now where it is and where it should go. Thanks a lot for that. Now I will hand over to Rakesh.
Hello, everyone. I am Rakesh Kumar. So I would like to address my next question to Chandrasekhar sir. We have understood from the book that you had a balanced view of HR and you had the ability to integrate the diverse agenda of others into the CHRO's own. So we would like to know more about on that so that our viewers would get the what have you done on that time?
So yeah, I'm not a great storyteller, but I will tell you conceptually first, and then I will tell you what that means. So what happens is that HR people must know that they have many stakeholders. But generally what happens, because the CEO appoints you and you report to the CEO, I'm talking of the CHRO, therefore the HR team, you tend to consider the CEO as your only and big customer. And you keep pleasing the CEO, doing things for the CEO because you think that he is the biggest customer. But problem is that actually the CEO, if he is a good CEO, he is employing you to advise him about how to deal with other stakeholders. And if you do not know what other stakeholders want, then you cannot advise the CEO correctly. And believe me, being the trusted advisor to the CEO is the best thing that an HR person can aspire for. If a CEO comes and trusts this CHRO and confides everything in him and helps him, then that is a fantastic time. Whenever that happened in my career, those were my best moments. But CEO will not do that if you do not know the pulse of other segments of the organization. So who are the segments? Actually, I draw a big picture always, very often in my company jobs. I used to draw a stakeholder map. So the stakeholder map is the frontline employees, those who are not officers. Every company has a section of them. They are different from the managers. They are being managed, the individual contributors, whatever you call them. They are one segment. They have to be heard. Second is your managers. Third is your HODs and CXOs. Fourth is your CEO. And fifth is your board. Sixth is your HR community. Okay. Seventh is your overall community, in which you live, the town you live, the site where your factory is, where your office is. There is a sort of people there. They are all your community. And if your company has unions, they are another set of stakeholders. So you need to understand that an HR leader must simultaneously manage all these stakeholders. And they have conflicting interests. What the frontline employee wants is different from what the manager wants. What the manager wants is different from the CXO. And all of them want something different from the union. And if you do not, first of all, conceptually appreciate that your role is not to side with any individual, you cannot do. So now story. Story is that there was a company where I was the CHRO. And for a while, I was having a running fight with my CEO on a few issues. So the CEO got so frustrated that he went to the board on a day there was a board meeting. I was there present in that board meeting. And CEO complained to the chairman of the board that Chandra is our CHRO. He reports to me, but he's not doing what I'm asking him to do. Okay. He said that to the chairman. So the chairman looked at me for a response. So then I said, no, I have some priorities, but I and Prasad, I and the CEO will sort it out. Then he didn't stop there. He said, look, the CEO's agenda should be your topmost priority. Then I sat back and I said, sorry, sir, I don't agree. And I looked at the chairman and said, should the HR person merely respond to the agenda of the CEO? Is he the only stakeholder for the CHRO? You are a wise chairman. Please give your judgment on this. If I make the CEO's agenda as my priority, I will neglect the agenda of the company. And there are so many people who want me to solve their problems, meet their issues, do this. My team must be pressed to handle many, many issues, not only respond to what the CEO wants. So then the good news is that chairman sided with me. And he actually kind of said that Chandra is making a very valuable point. It's a point that we all should understand, that as a true professional, the CEO's agenda is among the agendas, not all the only agenda. So this was an experience that I'm sharing. But conceptually, I want to leave with you thought, an integrated view of HR, a multi-stakeholder view of HR. HR person as a sutradhar, as somebody who puts all the entire choreography of the organization together, is an important way conceptually to understand our role.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I would like to welcome our alumni, Ms. Vaishnavi Shankar, to take this conversation ahead.
Thank you so much. I would first like to, thank you for this opportunity. Already we are learning enough from the experiences. So from the points which both of you mentioned.
Why don't you tell us what you're doing presently and then,
Oh, sure. So I myself, Vaishnavi, I'm a pass out of 2018 batch from School of Inspired Leadership. I joined Tata Steel in the year 2018, and that's where my career as an HR professional begins. And I did a 3 or 4 years HR business partner role for a coke plant, which is a core IR kind of a role, I would say. And like the Gheras we were talking about, maybe not in that extent, but miniature forms of that we have experienced. And all the IR related issues, like Dr. Akhil was mentioning, looking after amenities was also part of the role. And I would ask, for after doing MBA, why we have to do this? But reading the book really gave me that perspective that everybody understands IR and have to begin that journey from there. That is from the shop floor of our, industries or the areas. So now I'm heading talent acquisition with Tata Steel. So acquiring talent for that is where is my current role. So having looked at the IR part for also in Tata Steel, and now coming to the HR part, which is more of a corporate kind of a role. So I am bringing this question from both the perspective to both of you. Today, if I see and talk about the blue collar work employees, so these are basically Gen Z who are entering the workforce, and the kind of demands is also kind of changing. And the organization's focus is also now becoming more on saying that going digital, removing the transactional thing for the HR business partners, and they want us to focus the current HR business partners into forming relationships. While we say this, but there is a tiff that these relationships are not able to form because, there is this line which is getting blurred in terms of saying the contact points are decreasing. And now people are hesitating to go and they don't even want to talk this generation about their problems. They want to just text, or they can just put it on a social media where this factor has come. So now this IR dynamics have completely changed with the involvement of a lot of social parameters, social networks coming in place. So now how do you think we can manage this equation better, because there are so many unknown variables coming into play?
Vaishnavi, first of all, we are assuming there's an underlying assumption that there's a conflict between the Gen X or Z or whatever you call them and the previous generation. I think with that mindset, the conflict will increase. Change will happen. Let's face one thing, that we may call this Gen Z or Gen X as rebellious and they're a different world. We were no different when we were that age. We were as stubborn, we were as pig-headed, we were as troublemakers. Now, let's not act saintly that because gray hair has come, etc. So, I would feel that moving with the time, moving with the style of the people around you and the stakeholders that Chandra mentioned in his previous example, feeling the pulse where the stakeholders are moving, is important. If we get stuck to our way of doing things, that only physical meetings are important because I know I'm used to that, and you give an example that they don't want to come for a meeting. It's all right. Let the senior management change. A tail should not wag a dog. If the times have changed, any group of people, senior or otherwise, cannot say we will remain stationary the way we have done. This is a matter of adjustment. This is a matter of adaptability. And the faster they adapt, the better will be the equation between the two. I don't see it as a challenge. The challenge actually lies in lack of curiosity and lack of learning by the people who have tenured. I think that is the crux of it. People are afraid to use technology. There are many people who are senior. And a few years ago, I remember driving with a chairman of a large company. And as he was sitting in the car, his assistant gave him a plastic folder.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So they gave a plastic folder. And what did it contain? It was a printout of his email. And he would dictate the answers, and the secretary would type out the reply. I found it very unusual because the person had got frozen in time. And people who get frozen in time don't get respect. They must evolve themselves to be with the time. And if technology is coming in a big way, or way of communication is changing very rapidly, I think we got to make sure that we are up to date with the time. I'm not saying become trivial. Maintain the seriousness of the situation and effectiveness of the communication, but don't get hung on to this style of people. It's very unfair to call this generation that they are all after reward, instant gratification. Which of us were not looking for instant gratification? I think the adjustment should happen in the sense of giving respect. What is happening today, the conflict that you mentioned happens because people in senior level positions or middle level positions are demanding respect. You know, I've earned my position to become a director. I've not just stayed like that, I've earned it. So now give me the respect which I gave to my director when I was young. These are entitlement mindset. Entitlement mindset is obsolete. You earned your position, so who's denying that? Who's denying that? But at the same time, if you have earned your position, let people also earn their respect. And the moment leaders learn to give respect, they will get respected. There's no dearth of respect. Culturally, we always look up to authorities and senior people in both age and experience and stature. So I don't think it's foreign to us. But I don't think we should rely on that as a given that, you know, I must be respected because I am in a certain position and things must happen my way, including communication. So if a boss gets irritated getting a WhatsApp message, they say, I'll not be able to come for a meeting. And he gets upset, the problem is not with WhatsApp message or the sender. The problem is with the boss. He got the message. Would it have been different if the person had knocked on his or her door and said, ma'am, I'm not coming for this meeting, I'm not well. Would it have made a difference? The end result was would not attend the meeting. Adapt, adopt, and move with the time. And most important part is show respect. To earn respect, show respect. And this, I feel, is a demand on the senior leadership management.
So,
Sure,
I suppose I have to add to this, but there's nothing much to add. Akhil has done a great job, and
hello, Anil.
Anil has joined. So, Anil, hello. So, I will address one part of your question. I was watching your question. It evolved through two stages. One of the stages in which you were describing your problem was to say that things have digitalized. A lot of work for which people were coming to us, they are now going to digital tools. Therefore, we are unable to connect. Okay. And this is indeed the crux of the problem. Crux of the problem, the HR people is, there is an acknowledged but genuine power in transactions. So what is the power? If a person asks you, what is my leave? He has to depend on you. It's like my going to a doctor for everything. I can't treat myself. So you have, before digitalization, if employee wanted to do anything, he had to come to HR and ask. And HR power brokered. The transactions were a nice way. In fact, you are not the only one. Bankers are facing that problem. Now, with all banking happening internet, no banker is physically meeting his customer. But he has been incentivized to now make the customer make more deposits or buy mutual funds through the bank. He has no means to catch hold of the customer to persuade him to do that. So he rarely waits for an opportunity for the customer to come. Okay. Then as soon as he comes, he catches hold of him and tries to say, can you buy a deposit? Can you do something like this? Same thing, wherever digitalization happens, intermediation goes away. If intermediation goes away, power goes away. HR people are, due to automation, losing power. Okay, power over people and power over transactions. The traffic police power, the traffic management power, the rule book power. Now what can be done? Like a trapeze artist, HR has to learn to leave one rope and go to the next rope. And that rope is influence, which is the opposite of power, which doesn't come through transactions, but it comes through value addition. So if you can connect with your Gen Z employees beyond transactions, into their needs as human beings, aspirations, career problems, relationship problems, all them will become the legitimate area of engagement. If that you can do, by the way, the irony, we all have Gen Zs in our families. And we are fantastically dealing with them. We can't order Swiggy without consulting our Gen Z children. We can't go to a holiday without asking them. We cannot buy anything without asking them. They lead a consultative life in their personal lives. They get the best of everything, the newest gadget, the newest treatment. They're treated with full like equal partners in offices because, in homes, because homes are no more as bureaucratic. Like I was afraid of seeing my father, such thing is no more there. Why should we not replicate that home-like environment in the office? It's after all our own children who are coming to our work. So if at home we are consultative, in the office, why would we like to power broker? So the problem, Vaishnavi, is this search for power. HR has to get over that and move towards influence. Then Gen Zs will be with you.
Vaishnavi, if I can add something to what Chandra very eloquently mentioned. This whole game seems like a power game, who goes to who, but his crux, let me elaborate on that, the use of technology. The style of operation, if you look at, just walk across any HR department in any company today, you will not be surprised if you find them in front of 13 by 13 screen most of the time. The ability to answer mail quickly, the ability to respond very quickly is considered a badge of honor. That is all important. But I would actually give credit to those HR guys who are away from the seat, who are walking the floor, who are sitting in canteen, who are in the factory visiting the boiler house. Gup shup. It's not gup shup. This is the connect which employees want and managers also respect, because HR is a catalyst. They should become the opinion of the people's influencing skill in the management room to say this is what the people would benefit. So they actually become internal trade union leaders inside a closed door of a management team meeting. Of course, outside when they go out, they don't have to talk that I disagreed with so-and-so or so-and-so disagreed. We are one team as management team. But inside the management room where decisions are taken, they should not toe the party line. They should toe what is right for the people. Then only that H is deserved in HR. This is the reality check, which many of us forget.
Amazing, Dr. Busrai. And when I read the story written on you, I also read that you would be having strong debate inside the room, and then you would walk out and have chai muri with them. And even in one of these strong debates, the union leader said that, we should have a break because, you had to break your fast. So those are amazing stories. And I completely agree that, yes, HR has to be everywhere. They have to be in the market, they have to be on the shop floor, and they have to create those fantastic relationships. Dr. Shripada, when I read your story, and I loved what your mom had told you, which is, I can't pronounce it in Tamil, so I'll say it is advisable to drink water leisurely than to drink rich milk while running. I think I'll put it up somewhere in my room, and I will keep that note because it is such a simple thing to say, and it has such a profound way of, telling us what should be our priorities in life. There are many things which attracted me to this chapter, but some of them were things like when you frown upon elitism, okay, and talent, and say that it should be a leveling field. Another thing which, of course, I would like you to explain that, but also another thing was about tolerating abuse when you say that there's a price to pay because many of us go through all of this, and perhaps now on the, as we have traversed our journeys in our work, we know that this is difficult sometimes. And thank you so much for this difficult truth. I have students, I have alumni who come back and tell me, just the other day I was interviewing a girl who just worked for 9 months in an organization. And when she went on a call, a sales call, she was shouted upon by the client, who was a very senior gentleman, according to that. I didn't probe much, but my heart just broke. What would you tell us? How do we go through this? How do we come out of this?
You must have, all over the world, there was a viral video about how Indigo air hostess was being abused by, we are living in a very toxic world. So first thing is that for the young HR people, aspirants of those who are going into HR, we have a double task. We have to face the abuse and we have to correct the abuse. We are the only function which is responsible and in a way custodian of the culture of the organization. Organizations are very toxic. They are still power hungry, lots of bossism, lots of jerks as bosses, as I call it. It's true. We should first admit it and acknowledge it. We should not get, under the glitter of all those beautiful buildings and cafeterias and elevators. The human interactions are still very poor. And abuse is not only about a very loud shouting or screaming. It is all those insidious ways, very, very subtle ways that you feel marginalized, sidetracked, snubbed, not listened, not acknowledged, discriminated. It's huge amount of, if we were to call about human rights and atrocities, managers commit them quite a lot. We do not even have a measure of how much atrocities commit. I always tell my students that it takes a license to become a driver. It takes a license to become a doctor, but it doesn't take a license to become a manager of people. And it is a pity. We cannot trust mere experience and seniority to be good enough for managing people. People management is a very big responsibility. The world's biggest killer is stress. The world's biggest causer of stress is the manager. Therefore, the biggest killer of the world is the manager. So we should understand that the management world has to be made more civilized, more cultured. The interpersonal relationships have to be marked with dignity, mutual respect, irrespective of performance differences. Politeness and firmness can coexist. But if you go into the world with an expectation that the world will be like that, it won't be. It's a bad world. So go there with the mental preparation that it will be like that. I have gone through that huge amount of suffering in different organizations, but you have to resiliently, patiently persevere, and in your small ways, influence people to change and understand why reciprocal dignity is an important issue. So HR function must take upon itself the task of remaining resilient through the toxicity of the world and yet go and try and cure that. That's my view.
Professor, I think this ability to influence people doesn't need a license, in my opinion. And Chandra, you rightly give an example of a doctor and a dentist or a driver. I think by choosing ourselves to be in HR function, the license is already there. We don't have to wait for a nod or wait for instruction from a CEO or a nod, a pat from the CEO. I think we got to be self-accountable that this is my job. And if the atmosphere is toxic in any way, HR has two things to do. One is to smell it and do something about it. And the day the HR community turns a blind eye to a toxic environment, they have actually not lived up to their professional ethics. Now, to speak up requires conviction and courage. These are nice words to talk on a webinar like this. How many people would actually have that conviction to stand up and say, I will not allow this to happen under my watch? Now people say, I'm too young, I'm too not experienced, I'm junior, I'm new. We'll find 5 excuses why not to speak up. The good HR people are ones who actually risk their reputation, if I can put it, and get into trouble. I respect those people who get into trouble for the right reason. And later on, you will find the large number of line managers and employees, etc., will also respect that person who has a conviction. Now, to see a toxic environment, somebody shouting at somebody, or even hearing about it, is going to make it worse. The same thing happens in tolerating what many companies rightly follow, a zero tolerance on sexual harassment. One case of sexual harassment not acted upon can send shivers down the organization to say this is not the right place for me. And the indirect effect of not attracting right talent, not retaining right talent can never be felt. It's an earthquake that has happened with a light ripple, but it has left a damage. I think every time something that of this nature happens, HR has to stand up and be counted. Now, of course, to do that, you must build up a culture by training people, creating awareness, creating what are the do's and the don'ts. That requires time. And if you are stuck on your 13 by 13 screen, where is the priority to teach people culture? So I think going out to people and making sure that the culture is not just wished upon, it is acted upon by teaching what are the rules that we will abide by amongst ourselves, and toxicity will go down. Now, if it doesn't go down, then the HR has to do a policing role. Everything cannot be nice, lovey-dovey stuff. If it needs to roll up a sleeve and teach a lesson, I think HR has to play that role. One should not shy away. We are not here to be popular. We are here to be effective. And effectiveness only happens when you do the right thing. In doing the right thing, you may not be popular, but you will be respected. Now, you have to choose between you want to be respected or you want to be liked. None of us would say, I want to be liked more than respected. And to be respected, you have to do the right decision, even if it's a tough decision, not a popular decision. And I think this must come from within. That conviction must come from within, that I must stand up for employees' rights. I am their guardian angel, so to say. Now, there's nothing cheeky about it. If you're a guardian angel, that's your charter. That's why you're called human resources. The human part is your charter. And if we don't play that part, we are letting down the function and ourselves. And over a period of time, you'll become just a box in the organization chart. And I don't think any one of us will relish that.
We will come back on this, but I think we have to let go of Dr. Shripada. Because
if you have any last question, I can still stay for 3 minutes more. So if you have anything last, you ask me, otherwise I will go. Anybody, even in the audience, I don't know if your system allows audience to ask questions.
Yes, we have a system of having our audience ask a question. So I will just look at the question And okay, I have a question from, Dean Dayalan, who is our transformational IR professor. And Dr. Sripada, while I ask the question, it's your choice. I understand you will have to leave. You have an important,
No, I will. Dean Dayalan is somebody I respect a lot. You should know that he's a great man and he's doing a really, really great work. If I can answer his question, that will be very satisfying.
Okay.
So please tell me what his question is.
His question is, we pride no union. There is no IR issue in the service sector, but IR is not only about confrontation, but the intangible byproducts of depression, health hazards, stress toxicity, work-life balance. And in the name of business partners, most of us have become business managers, and the end customer in the front line is ignored. Energies are spent on so-called talent, and he says trust on managerial community. High tech, not at all the cost of high touch. So given the different strokes for different folks, and this is, I think, what is his opinion is. And in the same note, we also have Dr. Vidya Iyer from our other campus thanking you, saying this is a powerful message. And I don't see any other questions from the audience, but if there are questions, please put up and we would be happy to take them.
Since
Dr.
I have to leave, so let me respond to both the things and thank you for Vidya. But most importantly, actually, Mr. Dean Dayalan raises an important issue, not just here, but across all his works, all his conversations. He keeps bringing this issue that the absence of the old-fashioned confrontational IR should not make us complacent and believe that organizations do not need human relations and do all the right things for employees. And in fact, if we continue to be blind like that and only to be the business champions, then we will actually recreate that confrontational IR. Remember one thing, that kind of IR, wherever managers and employees, managers and HR fail, is where that old-fashioned IR succeeds. If we have proactive managers who are employee-oriented and a employee-oriented HR, system, in that place, such confrontational IR is not required. But employee relations continues to be an important aspect of organizations' work, and HR should take an active interest in it. And especially because the high tech is increasing, like Vaishnavi, you asked, because machines and bots are answering people's questions. We should address those questions which people cannot ask to bots or chat GPT. So that's our role. Okay. On that note, I will take leave. Anil, I'm sorry I had assumed it.
Chandra, thanks a lot for coming, and it's been joyful to see your own transformation from different parts of your life.
Yeah.
And to see the role that you are now playing in the Indian School of Business. So congratulations on a very, very wonderful life. And thank you for being part of this evening today.
Thank you. Thank you. I leave. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Rakesh Shubhangi, who's...
Hello. Hello, this is Sagar. I would like to address another question to Dr. Akhil. While reading the book, I have read that according to you, industrial relations is the best way to learn real OD. Can you please illuminate us more on this by taking us through your experience of handling numerous gheravs and strikes in West Bengal?
I don't think industrial relations should be seen as always negative part of getting into trouble with the union and confrontation. Industrial relation, when I say is a platform to learn a lot, was their theories did not work. What you did had an immediate impact, or what you did not do had an immediate impact. How much of trust you could develop with so-called adversaries doesn't happen by any textbook. You learn how to trust people and how you are trusted by the people. And that type of learning helps you understand the human nature in an enterprise. Later on, all these OD things that we read is actually nicely put theory, well put theory, but in practice, what you learn, I learned my best lessons from the union leaders. I was bacha that time, and some of these union leaders were experienced, they were politically well connected. One of the president was a member of the Politburo of the CPIM. But you realize that at the end of the day, when you deal with them as a human, they respond like a human. They may gherav you. And I'll give you one example, Sagar. I actually had got admitted. I am Calcutta, and I chose not to go for marketing or finance, which had been in my career selling soaps and shampoo. And my joint family were totally against it. I'm the only child. So my mother was very worried about getting into labor situation, so to say. And, those days we had only family phone. Anil, if you remember, one black phone in the family, everybody used that. And every time I would get late, she would be worried. My uncles and other people would be worried. One day we got out and I reached home at 10 o'clock. And the comment from my mother was, good. What you did today was good. You informed me that you're coming late. It's all right. You're safe. And I said, informed? I was in Ghera from 4 o'clock in the evening. The president of the union had actually rung up my mom and said, Sahab, 10 baje aayenge. Aaj meeting hai. Now he knew what time to call off the Ghera, because he was the boss. But for him to dial a number, and so next day when they were shouting slogan against the management, including me, and then bury this guy in this Mr. Chakravarti about, Bengali, hey, Mati te Kobordin. When they're shouting slogan like that, and I passed by, and Tapanda was his, I have a lot of respect for him, lot of respect. He's the president. He asked in Bengali, Kalke ma chinta karini to? Your mother didn't worry last night. I said, Tapanda, you? Then I realized, look at the humanness. He said, the fight is with you and your chair. Why should your mother worry? When you earn that type of rapport with people who you think are adversaries, you learn a lot, Sagar. Then you learn with collaboration becomes way of working, way of breathing. You think we don't have fights in the management team? Fights means arguments, disagreements. Of course we have. It's very healthy. But that doesn't lead to confrontation. It leads to a resolution. It leads to consensus. And that is the essence of working in a team. Now, whether we are looking at the union as the only people who fight with us, I totally disagree. That's why my saying that the IR is the best way to learn basics of human resources. And many of your generation is missing out the ER part of it. So if you find an opportunity to work on a ER situation, don't let that go. You'll see the value of it many years from now, that was a good patch to learn.
Akhil, what a wonderful joy to see you. What I love most about you is your childlike curiosity and, your hunger. You are not satisfied with one PhD, now you're doing another PhD. Not because you want to tell people, but it's because you have this just curiosity and the love for learning. So thank you. I think if students can take that just one attribute from you, I think they would really rise.
Thank you, Anil. I think sometimes, just this bug in your head doesn't stop from doing things like that. But I really appreciate your comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Time for us to wrap up, I think, my colleagues. So go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Akhil sir. I would like to thank all the honorable leaders who blessed us with their presence. Also, we are thankful to the SOIL staff and the audience. Now, I would like to invite Professor Aja Chakravarti ma'am to say some parting words and close the session.
Thank you, Sagar, and thank you everyone present here. Thank you, Anil, for giving us this opportunity to meet these wonderful human beings and leaders in HR. Thank you, Vijaya, for your presence and coordinating so much. I really have learned a lot today. Dr. Akhil, since you mentioned your mother, there's so much about her in the chapter written about you, where you learned from her about vulnerability. And you also, learned from her that, you have to share dates with anyone who comes in the house, even if there's less. And there's so much. And therefore, when you worked with, I think this was in Motorola, that you always backed your team. These are such important things to notice for us and my students. And thank you so much for this your presence today. I would invite Vijaya to say the last words, and we can close.
Before you go, Vijaya, Anil, thank you very much to you and your soil team for making this happen. And of course, thanks to TV Garu and Arvind Agarwal for giving the trigger point for us. I think they've done a phenomenal job and hard work putting this book behind, and you have leveraged that book into making a learning experience for all of us. So thank you, Anil and Team Soil. I like the idea of students questioning and you using the word, to use your phrase, you fly on the wall and watch what's happening. That's very generous of you.
Thank you, Dr. Akhil, for spending this time with us. I must say, it was a fantastic evening listening to you. The way you redefined IR and the perspective that you brought. And I love the way you spoke about how you need to collaborate and take your team together and stuff like that. So thank you very much for that. And a big thank you to Anil also, because when he conceived the idea and he brought it up, I was thinking like, how is this going to happen? But then my students did a great job. They kind of went on to say, no, we'll do it. And Anil has been a big support. So thank you so much, my students, and Dr. Anil, Dr. Akhil, for having spent this time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would also like to express my, heartfelt gratitude. Can't express how much I'm feeling very fortunate to be part of this session and having this interaction and learning so much. Many of my questions were answered in these sessions, which I always had in my mind how to address. So thank you, I think the Soil team, for also giving me the opportunity to be part of this session. And thank you, Dr. Akhil, answering with such empathy that I could really feel it from here. So thank you so much.
Vaishnavi, nice to see you shine and nice to see you make the soil flag go high. So lots of blessings and love for you, Vaishnavi. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Dr. Akhil. And since you're in Gurgaon, please do visit us in Soil.
I will, ma'am. I will certainly do that.
And yes, we must connect.
Thank you. So Vaishnavi, is the recording over or is I'm not recording?
We are still on the recording.
Actually, we missed the beginning part of recording, Professor.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah, because the recording started somewhere, I think, on the...
I heard the voice, yeah.
So we missed the beginning part of interaction in recording. I don't know how you will handle that, but can't be helped.
Yeah, there's a backend team handling that, so hopefully they would have done something.
Unless there's somebody who's recorded it in backend, maybe.
Yeah, there is a backend, yeah. Hopefully.
Okay. But thank you, Professor, and we'll catch up. And Vaishnavi, you have got IR experience. You're lucky in the HR. So all the other people, Sagar and Rakesh and I can't read your name. Subhangi. Steel opportunities, steel. If you can't get it ready-made, still opportunity to volunteer to do some work in areas of employee relations. You'll never regret.
I truly back that up.
Yeah?
Sure, sir. Thanks.
I know it's a dirty part of HR. People, whoever worked in ER were looked down upon. Yuck. I'd rather do career planning and things like OD. So many of my colleagues that time, including ourselves, you're doing a union meeting, yuck. But that's a cycle of life.
Yeah. And as you said, those are where the big learnings come from. You know, when you sit and have chai with the peons outside your office.
Yeah, but that time we didn't realize we were learning, because
Yes.
the learning was so intense that we thought it was a, God, what a phase. When will this be over? But amazing.
Dr. Akhil, you spoke about conviction, and I think a lot of that conviction comes from this kind of an experience where you're actually working at the shop floor, when you're actually talking to people and, you know, you feel them, you can hear them, you feel them. And that's where
And
also a lot
you're
of
very right.
conditioning.
I think the seed of all the action that we do comes out of conviction. Now, the conviction may be misplaced sometime with lack of data or otherwise, but the conviction drives home most of our results. I remember I was in Eta, in a remote location, a dairy plant in North UP, district Manpuri, very violent area. And I was sent there